Good afternoon, dear students. Today's lecture is a continuation of the previous lecture, Types of Equivalence. We'll consider today the following questions: the notion of a context and its forms, the notion of an occasional equivalent, equivalent lacking lexical and grammatical units. Even if a SL unit has a regular equivalent in TL, this equivalent cannot be used in TT whenever the unit is found in ST. An equivalent is but a potential substitute, for the translator's choice is to a large extent dependent on the context in which the SL unit is placed in ST. So the context of a word is a total combination of words, grammar forms, and constructions within which a given word is used. There are two types of context: linguistic and situational. The linguistic context is made up by the other SL units in ST. The situational context includes the temporal, spatial, and other circumstances under which the ST was produced, as well as facts which the receptor is expected to know so that he could adequately interpret the message. Context is also divided into microcontext and macrocontext. The microcontext is the context of word combinations and sentences. The macrocontext is a language environment of a given unit, which is more than a sentence. Exact limits of the macro context cannot be defined. It may be the context of a group of sentences, a passage, a chapter, a whole novel. In its turn, the microcontext can be lexical and syntactic. The syntactic context is that syntactic construction in which a word or word combination is used. The lexical context is a total combination of lexical units, word combinations where the word is used. A variety of equivalents may also result from a more detailed description of the same object in TL. The English word attitude, for instance, is translated as отношение, позиция, политика, depending on the variant the Russian language prefers in a particular situation. Here the choice between equivalents is determined by TL factors. Let's consider the following examples. I don't like your attitude to your work. Here the word attitude is translated as отношение, отношение к работе. There is no sign of any change in the attitudes of the two sides. The word attitudes is translated as позиции, позиции обеих сторон. And in the next example, he stood there in a threatening attitude. The word attitude is translated as поза, поза угрожающая. The fact that a SL unit has a number of regular equivalents does not necessarily mean that one of them will be used in each particular translation. True, in many cases, a translator's skill is well demonstrated in his ability to make a good choice among such equivalents. But not infrequently, the context does not allow the translator to employ any of the regular equivalents to the given SL unit. Then, the translator has to look for an ad hoc way of translation which will successfully render the meaning of the unit in this particular case. Such an exceptional translation of a SL unit which suits a particular context can be described as occasional equivalent or a contextual substitute. So, occasional equivalent, what is it? An exceptional translation of a SL unit which suits a particular context can be described as an occasional equivalent or a contextual substitute. It is clear, for instance, that none of the above-mentioned regular equivalents to the English attitude can be used in the translation of the following sentence. He has a friendly attitude towards all. An occasional equivalent may be found through a change of the part of speech. So here the word attitude is translated in the following way. Он ко всем относится по-дружески. The particular contextual situation may force a translator to give up even a permanent equivalent. Geographical names have such equivalents which are formed by imitation of the foreign name in TL. And the name of the American town of New Haven is invariably rendered into Russian as New Haven. But the sentences, I graduated from the New Haven in 1915, will be hardly translated in the regular way, since the Russian reader may not know that New Haven is famous for its Yale University. The translator will rather opt for the occasional equivalent. Я окончил Ельский университет в 1915 году. The regular equivalents are by no means mechanical substitutes, and their use or replacement by occasional equivalents calls for a high level of the translator's skill and the taste. No small number of SL units have no regular equivalents in TL. Equivalent lacking words are often found among SL names of specific national phenomena, such as the English words corona, condominium, impeachment, babysitter, and the like. Some grammar forms and categories may also be equivalent lacking. For example, the English gerund, article, or absolute participle construction, which have no counterparts in Russian or Kazakh languages. The absence of regular equivalents does not imply that the meaning of an equivalent lacking SL unit cannot be rendered in translation, that its translation must be less accurate. We have seen that words with regular equivalents are not infrequently translated with the help of contextual substitutes. Similarly, the translator coming across an equivalent lacking word resorts to occasional equivalents, which can be created in one of the following ways. First, using loan words imitating in TL the form of the SL word or word combination. For example, tribalism, impeachment, backbencher, заднескамеечник, brain drain, утечка мозгов. As often as not, such occasional formations are adopted by the members of the TL community and get the status of regular equivalents. Second, using approximate substitutes, that is, TL words with similar meaning, which is extended to convey additional information. For example, drugstore, аптека, afternoon, вечер. The Russian apteka is not exactly a drugstore where they also sell such items as magazines, soft drinks, ice cream, etc. But in some cases, this approximate equivalent can well be used. The third, using all kinds of lexical, semantic transformations modifying the meaning of the SL word. For example, he died of exposure may be rendered into Russian as он умер от простуды or он погиб от солнечного удара. The fourth, using an explanation to convey the meaning of the SL unit. For example, landslide. Победа на выборах подавляющим большинством голосов. Brinkmanship. Искусство проведения политики на грани войны, etc. Equivalent lacking grammatical forms give less trouble to the translator. Here, occasional substitutes can be classified under three main headings, namely, first, zero translations, when the meaning of the grammatical unit is not rendered in the translation, since it is practically identical to the meaning of some other unit and can be safely left out. For example, by that time he had already left England. К этому времени он уже уехал из Англии. Approximate translations, when the translator makes use of a TL form partially equivalent to the equivalent lacking SL unit. For example, I saw him enter the room. Я видел, как он вошел в комнату. The Russian language has no complex objects of this type, but the meaning of the object clause is a sufficient approximation. The third, transformational translation, when the translator resorts to one of the grammatical transformations. As has been emphasized, equivalents are not mechanical substitutes for SL units, but they may come handy as a starting point in search of adequate translation. The translator will much profit if he knows many permanent equivalents, is good at selecting among variable equivalents, and resourceful at creating occasional equivalents, taking into account all contextual factors. So the third way is transformational translation. Example, your presence at the meeting is not obligatory, nor is it desirable. Ваше присутствие на собрании не обязательно и даже нежелательно. Here, as you see, the syntactical integration took place. Thank you for your attention.